is trusted, though, by 69% of Republicans. Spencer Kimball of Emerson College conducted the poll for us. Let's also look at the issues. We asked the people who were polled about issues that matter to them as they're heading in to vote in the upcoming primary. Crime, not very high. The economy, very, very high and coming in the top spot. Does that translate as well into what you're seeing across the country as we head into the primary season?
Yeah, the economy is the #1 issue across the board in every state. Now, remember, these are Republican primary voters, and so amongst Republicans, the economy usually ranks a little bit higher than, let's say, health care. And so these numbers are generally in the trends of what we're seeing. The issue of crime and immigration, they're percolating, but they're not the #1 issue. The pocketbook issues are the #1 issues for these voters. Then we're going to get into the issue of immigration and crime as they percolate up at around 30% combined.
Which makes it interesting because the two top candidates that the poll seems to show are ahead. Sheriff Lombardo, former State Attorney General Adam Laxalt, obviously have history in law enforcement. Does that just come down from what you've looked at here to name recognition?
Yeah, I would say the name recognition and the Trump endorsement are what carrying the day for those two candidates. As you mentioned, the state GOP really endorsed two other candidates last week, and neither one is in really competitive position at this point. So as the campaigns really now are going to come into full motion, about a month out, 5 weeks out from Election Day, I expect to see a lot more advertising. And if you're going to see a move with one of these candidates, this is going to be the time. And as you bring it up, the issue is going to be the economy. So as we look at what these candidates talk about, they're going to have to make the case that they're stronger than either Lombardo or Laxalt in the governor or the Senate race when it comes down to the economy.
We're back. Obviously, a lot, David, to digest from these poll results. What stood out most to you?
So I think the big takeaway here is obviously, as you just heard, the economy clearly #1 issue here for voters this cycle. We talk about it a lot with jobs, inflation, that kind of stuff. So they will be voting, of course, with their pocketbooks, even in the primary in a couple weeks now.
And the question is if this is going to guide where the commercials go, the ads go, what you see on TV from these candidates. Maybe they might focus on the economy more moving forward. David, good to see you once again. Appreciate it. If you want to take a closer look at the poll results, we have them right now at 8newsnow.com. We also focus on a couple of other issues with regards to the Republican primary. You might be interested in that. Just check on the politics tab on 8newsnow.com. The Nevada State Republican Party threw a bit of a wrench into those commanding leads by Adam Laxalt and Joe Lombardo. As we mentioned earlier, the GOP endorsed Joey Gilbert for governor and Sam Brown for Senate instead of the frontrunners, the perceived frontrunners. It happened during a party meeting last weekend. Nevada's Democratic Party isn't endorsing candidates. It isn't running the campaigns of sitting Nevada Democrats either. That's being run by a group called Nevada Democratic Victory. Nationally, Democrats are preparing to help Governor Steve Sisolak hold on to his seat. The Democratic Governors Association is placing a massive $10 million ad buy here. A separate Democrat national organization is placing an ad buy to back Democrats in the state assembly and state Senate races. Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel was in Las Vegas this week to open a new office. It's inside the Chinatown Plaza. It's for outreach into our Asian American community. Asian Americans are the fastest growing demographic in Nevada and in the U.S., currently 11% of the electorate.
This is a way for our party to introduce ourselves to communities that have not always been Republican, share our values, but also hear back ways that we can serve better and represent those communities better. So we're thrilled to be here in Las Vegas, and we're seeing really big gains, especially with the Filipino community here. You have a lot of Pacific Islanders here. It's the 9th island. So we're excited to be here in Nevada.
Republicans say their emphasis on faith, family, and personal reliance reflects the values of the Asian American community. Nevada Democrats have sent an official bid to host the nation's first presidential primary in 2024. New rules for which state gets to go first. They're very favorable for the Silver State. It focuses on diversity and battleground status. Nevada's also already switched, as you know, to a primary from a caucus. The state party and the Cutout Group we mentioned earlier in the program, they're running campaigns working on this in unison, trying to get Nevada the first Democratic primary. Other political news this week, Las Vegas City Council member Michelle Fiori was injured in a car crash. Her campaign says she suffered a broken orbital bone and head trauma in the collision. This was Monday night near Tenaya and Centennial Parkway. Police say both drivers involved were responsible. Fiori's been on the city council since 2018. She is a Republican candidate for the state treasurer's office. Next on Politics Now, abortion in Nevada, the laws in our state, and the impact of a potential Supreme Court rejection of Roe v. Wade.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Stop trying to tell women what to do with our bodies.
This week, pro-choice protesters held a quick rally in front of the downtown Las Vegas federal courthouse. The protest came after Politico released what it says is a draft copy of Supreme Court justices, the majority, discussing an abortion case they have on the docket. Now, there is a lot to get into here with this issue. First, it's important to know Nevada is one of 16 states with the right to an abortion in state law. It's codified in state law. Here in Nevada, it is legal up to 24 weeks to get an abortion and afterwards if the mother's health is threatened. Overturning Nevada's law would require a vote by the people during an election. The most recent polling does show more than 60% of Nevadans support our abortion law. Christian Cazades lays out the swift reaction to the story here in the Silver State.
As long as I'm governor of the state of Nevada, I will do everything in my power to protect women's right to choose. Everything.
We've heard from Nevada lawmakers on both sides of the political spectrum. Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen tweeting, "These unprecedented and dangerous attacks on reproductive rights can't go unanswered. It's time to codify Roe into law." And from Republican candidate for Senate Adam Laxalt, if the leaked draft reflects the Supreme Court's ultimate decision, it would constitute a historic victory for the sanctity of life.
I'm pretty confident that it would happen, possibly in June. And this is also showing how elections have consequences. Donald Trump, when he was president, nominated 3 of the Supreme Justices.
Jesus Marquez is a Nevada Republican analyst and says those responsible for the leak should be held responsible.
In the history of the court, we had never had any leak like this, and we had very controversial decisions.
If the decision was overturned, our state protection enacted in 1990 would still be applied.
Those who really need it, those who are already marginalized and have difficulty accessing care. So these are our Black women, our Indigenous people of color, young people, transgender and non-binary people as well.
Dr. Nika Vizcarra says she is not surprised after seeing how abortion rights have been under attack for years.
This would be really terrible for overall health, because we know that abortion is is extremely safe as an option for pregnancy.
Christian Cáceres, 8 News Now.
On the national level, the focus is on what a Supreme Court decision will actually say and what that will mean as far as court precedent going forward. I spoke with Washington, D.C. correspondent Alex Limon. Democratic lawmakers talked a lot about protecting abortion access. So, Alex, what moves can they make if the Supreme Court does end up striking down Roe?
Hey, John. Well, Democrats have talked a lot this week about protecting legal, safe access to abortions nationwide, because they say that not doing that, if Roe is struck down, it isn't necessarily going to lead to fewer abortions. It's just going to lead to more dangerous abortions happening instead that would put mothers' lives at risk. And so they have been fired up talking about wanting to protect, federal legal access to abortion. But the reality is that they have very few options, at least right now, to accomplish that. In Congress, there is the Women's Health Protection Act, a bill that's very popular among Democrats that would essentially codify the protections that we have seen under Roe. The issue is that Democrats just don't have the votes to pass that in the U.S. Senate. They don't have the 60 votes they would need to overcome a filibuster. And so there has been some talk among Democrats about an effort to maybe try to get rid of the filibuster, maybe just get rid of it for this specific purpose. But already we've heard from Democratic senators like Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, who says she would not be supportive of that idea. So they also don't have the votes for that. So WIPA doesn't seem like a realistic bill that can be passed right now.
And even beyond Roe v. Wade and the discussion of the Supreme Court, Democrats say if federal abortion rights are struck down, other rights could be next. Specifically, what are they concerned about?
Yeah, and President Biden has talked about that concern repeatedly. He said, could states like Florida, for example, decide that they don't want same-sex marriage to be legal in their states? The reason that they are concerned about other rights, being struck down by the courts next is because again, this opinion that was leaked from the Supreme Court isn't the final opinion, but if it is issued as that draft was released, then some of the reasoning for why Roe would be struck down is because it isn't a specific right. Access to abortion isn't a specific right that's outlined in the Constitution, and therefore the Supreme Court and Republicans say that it should be left up to the states. Well, if that's the reasoning that's used, then you can say the very same thing about same-sex marriage. It is not a right that is specifically outlined in the Constitution. It's also not a right that Congress has passed a specific law to protect that right. Same thing for access to contraception or access to abortion pills, also known as Plan B, or there's also Plan C pills. There's a whole long list of rights that Americans have because of court decisions, not because they're in the Constitution specifically or because Congress has passed laws to. And so if that's the reasoning that's used, then it can be used for a whole long list of other things as well.
That was Alex Limon from Washington, D.C. A fee hike for small businesses. Next on Politics Now, why the health district wants businesses to pay more and why many are balking at the request. Plus, the new head of the FBI here in Las Vegas talks about his role and his agency's role in election security.
from all my heart.
You're watching Politics Now.
The FBI says more children are being targeted for sexual images and then being tricked in a scheme to try and get money. It's called sextortion, and it is very much a crime. In particular, the FBI is seeing more young boys being targeted. Criminals posing as young girls to trick them into sending sexual images through social media, then trying to extort money. The FBI is urging parents, talk with your children about this and know what they're doing online.
Don't assume, my kid is a good, student, or they're a scholar athlete, or, because they go to church, or for whatever other reason this would never happen to them. It really runs the spectrum of kids that are targeted.
That's Spencer Evans, the new special agent in charge of the local FBI office in Las Vegas. The 8 News Now I-Team's Vanessa Murphy spoke with him for a one-on-one interview.
Special Agent in Charge Spencer L. Evans starting here at the FBI office in Southern Nevada during an especially busy time. The NFL draft on the Las Vegas Strip just wrapped up. Crime is up across the country, and it's an election year.
So the FBI will be working with a variety of partners, both on the law enforcement side and on the election commission side, both at the state and federal levels, back at FBI headquarters and in every field office, to make sure that elections are fair and open and safe. There's specific and very prescriptive ways that we go about doing that to make sure that there's no undue influence being brought to bear by the FBI or its partners on any sort of influence or any sort of election. But those efforts will start to ramp up. They've already been well in the works for the last several months.
And shifting to a pandemic-related issue, he says the FBI is investigating COVID-19 relief dollars. This is something the I-Team has reported on about some individuals receiving that money who shouldn't have. Reporting in Las Vegas, Vanessa Murphy, live, local, now.
Businesses in Southern Nevada are about to see a fee hike. This week, the Southern Nevada Health District approved a 27% increase to its environmental health fee. The Health District says it's to keep up with inflation. Christian Cazadis looks at the issue that affects every business here.
They're trying to do a game of catch up on their own, and we're paying the consequences.
Another expense, Angelica Nielsen says, to add to their growing list of costs for this 15-year-old business of Sahara and Decatur.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
The Pastry Palace, still recovering from the pandemic, now is just one of many businesses in the valley getting hit with the new bill hike by the Southern Nevada Health District.
It makes a difference. Our customers complain to us all the time why our cakes are more expensive, and it's like, well, everything that we have to pay for is also going up.
This week, the Southern Nevada Health District approved a 27% hike to its environmental health fee, which is expected to generate about $25 million in 2023, with an annual increase up to 3% after.
Here's a kind of a breakdown, just general fast food, all the permits that they may require, they'll go up $106. So you think about the year, it's 365 days, that's way less than $1 a day.
They say the fee helps pay for things like inspections, food operations and compliance, solid waste, and consumer health. The fee revenue, according to the Health District's presentation, no longer covering their expenses.
It's about 300 and something. So meaning it's going to go up around $100 and something.
As Nielsen and her team continue to recover from the pandemic, she understands the reason behind the hike. It's only the timing that's rough.
Even if it increases, we can complain about it, but you still have to sign your check.
Christian Casares, 8 News Now.
Health District officials say this fee increase will help with public safety and
588-4800.
In What to Watch, the first debate of the Republican Senate primary. Adam Laxalt and Sam Brown will have their debate next week on the CW station up in Reno. So far, Laxalt has only agreed to that debate. And Clark County sent out sample ballots for the primary election this week. Early voting starts on May 28th. And the county expects people will receive their mail-in ballots the week leading up to early voting. That'll do it for us here on Politics Now. We'll see you next week. Take care.